Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It is Monday, April 20th, 11:18 a.m., and the state of Michigan is doing its darndest not to allow President Trump's Department of Justice to have copies of various records regarding the last Trump election. They are in defiance, and it is a quiet confrontation, I guess you could say, except if you have to be like me and scan through CNN, where they're considering this a big victory, or if you're not paying attention, you should be, because what is happening is not a typical political dispute. It is a test case, and you're going to see more of it closer to the elections. A test of whether individual states can decide on their own when the federal government is allowed to examine a federal election. And more importantly, whether they can simply say no, meaning the state. Let's get straight to that, which is the Department of Justice requested ballots and related materials out of Wayne County, Michigan, following a federal election, not to declare the guilt, not to overturn results, but they asked to examine it, to verify it. So they're asking for to do what law enforcement is supposed to do, which is investigate. And the response from Michigan, because she thinks she's a hero, is a flat rejection. Absolutely not a legal negotiation, not a narrowing of scope, not a see you in court or this, or what do they say in the television? This interrogation is over. Just that this is baseless, this is political, and we are not cooperating. Now, stop right there, little girl, because that response, no matter how you dressed it up, raises a fundamental question here, which is who decides whether a federal investigation is legitimate? Because we've had a bunch of them in the last 4 years, right, or 5 years. The Department of Justice or a state official who has already decided that there is nothing to see here. And here's the reality that's getting lost in the noise of all this, especially with the Iranian thing. A federal election is not a state asset. It is not local property. It is not something that belongs to Michigan or Georgia or the state of Virginia, regardless of what they think is going on in the world. It is the mechanism by which the national government is formed, which means the integrity of that election is not just a state concern, it is a federal obligation. And we've been through this before, civil rights era, states made the argument in a different form that we've reviewed our own systems. There's no problems here. Negroes are allowed to vote anywhere. Just ask them. Federal intervention is unnecessary. And what did the federal government do? It stepped in because the right at stake, which is the right to vote, was too important to be left to self-certification, especially in areas where we have known combatants. Now, let's be clear about something else. This isn't about proving fraud in advance. It's not kind of how investigations work, which is kind of what they want. They want you to have 100% proof and then you can ask for evidence. It's not how this works. You don't prove a crime before you investigate it. You investigate to determine whether a crime occurred. So when a state says there's no evidence, therefore you don't get access, what it's really saying is you don't get to look at anything. That's not how this game is played. And that's where this becomes dangerous, because if the standard holds that states can deny federal access based on their own internal conclusions come the next presidential election, right? The integrity of a federal election depends on whether a state feels like cooperating. Not the law, not oversight, not accountability, just discretion. And let's not pretend that this is about protecting democracy. He is not trying to get information out of the state of Florida. He is trying to get it out of the state of Michigan, home to Detroit, the Motor City, right? Known for one machine, one politic under God or Allah, depending on who you're talking to. A system that refuses verification does not build confidence. It erodes it, because the American public and the people, you don't need perfection. It needs transparency. It needs accountability. It needs to know that no part of the system is beyond scrutiny. We had that down here as well. So even though I said Florida earlier, Florida does some dirty shit. Don't get me wrong. Come to Broward and Dade and Palm Beach counties. Now, does the federal government have limits? Of course it does. And that's why there's a checks and balances system. If a request is too broad, you can challenge it. If it lacks legal grounding, you can take it to court. That's how the system is designed to work. But that process happens through law and through procedure of law, not through unilateral refusal out of the box. Because the bottom line is this: you cannot claim to defend the right to vote while simultaneously blocking efforts to verify that those votes were handled properly. Access and integrity are not competing values, they are the same value viewed from two different angles. And if we lose that and we allow states like Michigan to decide, or California or any of these other breakaway states, they're secessionists. We allow them to decide politically when federal law applies, then we fragment the system itself. So that's where we are with this. I would keep an eye on it, same as we discussed earlier in another episode about this new compact they're trying to push where they get to vote the president through on a series of other scammy things. The Communist Party operating, or Socialist Party operating inside of the Democrat Party, is always busy coming up with something else. Never, if you notice, does it come up with something to increase jobs, to decrease unemployment, to fight poverty. It does none of those things because it needs to have negative world image or negative personal image to succeed. So instead, they are doing shit like this to find a way that they do not have to vote. And if they do vote, that it does not have to be accountable to anybody. So that's what we have for now. Monday, April 20th. Have a good day. See you all later.